Welcome everyone back to the Hard Hat Talks podcast. My name's Kenneth Martin, your host. I'm joined today by Mr. Frank O'Donnell from Groundwater Dynamics. Frank, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Good morning, Kenny. Delighted to be here.
Fantastic. Frank, we always start off with just a wee introduction to yourself for the listeners. If you don't mind, a wee bit of an explanation to the wonderful work that Groundwater Dynamics are doing.
Yeah, well, we deal with surface water and localised flooding. Been doing it now in the UK since 2012. I've been having it in Scotland since about 2014. And things are going well. Yeah, over 500 installations across the country, dealing, as I said, with the local surface water issues and localised flooding. So yeah, can't complain.
Great. So how did you get involved in the groundwater industry then?
Yeah. Well, going back to 2014, a friend of mine, Joe Amara and Matt Dale, approached me. They'd been looking for an opportunity in the environmental market, and call it luck or chance or law of attraction, whatever you want. They were introduced to a system that they thought might be working. They were advised to go and look at a system, and full marks to them, they took the action and they flew to America. And they went to looked at a job in Detroit Airport. Now, the problem in Detroit Airport was that at the end of the runway, there was a lot of water and birds were forming. And as the planes were taking off, the birds were flying up and causing problems for the planes. And one plane actually come down. So the airport decided they've got to do something. So they went in and installed the system, and they had a design come out to do it, but they couldn't get right onto the area because it was so wet. So they done some of it and went back about 3 months later to complete the job, and were told, it's okay, we don't need you on it because what you've done has already drained it. So it solved the problem. And Joe and Mark went, wow, we need this in the UK. So they brought it back to the UK in 2012. I spoke to them in 2014. I thought, you know what, this is amazing. I fell in love with it right away, and I thought, and that's why I've been doing it now for 10 years. I just love the system. I love it. It's different. It's a disruptor in the market, and there's no one else in the UK doing it apart from ourselves.
So I worked with you several years ago on one of my own developments, looking at the solution to see if we could make it work on that site. So I know a little bit about what the system is.
Yeah.
But for the viewers or the listeners, do you want to give them a wee bit more insight into how that system works?
100%. I think when you look at the existing system of dealing with surface water, where we move it off site to somewhere else, we actually deal with it on site. And we'll come up with an engineered solution depending on the volume of water we have to deal with. And we'll drill into the ground up to 12 meters and let gravity and Mother Nature take care of it. And basically that's what we do. It's not like overly complicated. It's a very, very simple process. And one of the issues that we do have, because it is so simple, people tend to think, well, that won't work. That won't work. It's often the simplest methods are the ones that do work. It's the overcomplicated ones that cause a problem. But as the system is very, very simple, very straightforward, we test drill the ground, work out what the infiltration rates are, pass it to the engineers who design an engineered solution based specifically on that particular part of that ground that we're dealing with. And that's it. And it just multiplied by the volume of water we have to deal with.
Yeah. Because I think, I'm thinking back to my development, the big challenge we've got nowadays, and we see it on most, or in fact all housing developments we're working with now, is how do we deal with surface water? The challenge is literally is that Scottish Water don't really want you to take that into their system anymore. They're going to say, no, you can't do it, we're at capacity. So we need to find ways of dealing with surface water. And traditionally architects would have, or engineers working with architects would have looked at different types of solution, retention ponds, etc. But your solution is quite revolutionary. I think when we dealt with it some, 6-7 years ago, not saying it was in its infancy, but certainly the project specifically that we were dealing
Yeah,
on, building control started to ask questions, and you thought, do they get it?
yeah.
So what's been happening then, maybe over the last 6 7 years within your own organisation to tick boxes for
Yeah,
regulators and people who are worried about pressures and
yeah,
all
yeah.
the other things that go with it.
Yeah, no, great question, Kenny. Whenever we talk about, you mentioned Scottish Water, and in reality, if we're doing it correctly, we don't really need Scottish Water. We're looking for Scottish Water. The industry looks for Scottish Water as a way out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's get me connected to that
Mm-hmm.
combined sewer. In reality, we don't need connection to the combined sewer.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be taking the water off site.
Mm-hmm.
The water could be dealt with on site. Instead of passing that problem onto some other area, it could be dealt on site.
Mm-hmm.
What would help considerably would be if Scottish Water were to adopt the system, because they can adopt. There's no reason why they can't adopt it, because what we're dealing with is underground.
Mm-hmm.
And every installation carries a 2 million indemnity.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's our challenge within the industry, is getting Scottish Water to take it on board.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what we've done over the years, initially going back to 2014, our focus was pretty much on uh, golf courses and etc., football pitches and that sort of thing. But then that all changed in 2016 when we produced our first engineering solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for Newcastle High School for Girls, which was the biggest job we got at that time. Newcastle High School for Girls, an all-weather pitch. We installed our system underneath
Mm-hmm.
the football pitch.
Right.
You with
Okay.
me? And we've moved on since then. We've got more science involved in it, so we're ticking a lot more boxes. We're presenting to SEPA, who seem to be quite comfortable with the system.
Mm-hmm.
Scottish Water seem to be quite comfortable with the system.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all these boxes are all getting ticked bit by bit, bit by bit. But it's really the industry itself needs to move on and needs to sort of be more ingenious, open their eyes up to the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities that's there,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just going with the flow,
Mm-hmm.
going with the flow. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, every company that starts up in any industry starts with an idea,
Mm-hmm.
and someone takes a chance. They take a risk
Mm-hmm.
because they think they can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, as they start to grow and bring people in, that initial vision gets lost,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people start going the same as everybody else. And once you go down that line, it's almost like a drive to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Think about any business that comes down to, well, you do the same as what they do. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Generally, it comes down to price.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're a little bit cheaper. So it's almost like a drive to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
When in actual fact, what people want is innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of companies tend to lose that as they get bigger. I think they sometimes forget about the innovation part, because it's all about a drive to profits, profits. But we've got to look at the overall cost in the long term. But that's not an issue for a local builder. They just think, we'll get that job done, we'll get it finished, we'll get the houses sold, we'll get paid, move on, next job.
Mm-hmm.
Same again, same again, same again.
Mm-hmm.
And very, very short term issues, looking after, let's say, shareholders, return for the shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
But evidence is showing that a lot of these big companies, unless they do it right, they disappear.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the number of companies over the years that disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, some big companies, like think about Xerox.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought that in 2025 that Xerox would be a thing of the past?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they lost the innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And
So your solution is, that I remember, quite an innovative solution.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
probably a space saver on site as well. I think at the time we were looking at, instead of doing porous driveways, or we were looking at potentially porous driveways in combination with your system and drilling,
yeah, yeah.
if I remember correctly.
The whole system has got so many options, Kenny. That it's so flexible. It's unbelievable. To give you an example, we just done a job last year for a massive extension to a high school.
Mm-hmm.
No outlet, landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
We had to deal with the surface water.
Mm-hmm.
So what we done was that we actually took the surface water from the site and stored it underneath the football pitch, underneath the football pitch,
Right.
and drained it into the ground from the football pitch. No retention ponds, straight down. A couple of years ago, we done a job over in Anstruther in Fife, where again, I actually was on the job when we done the test drill, and we're only about 10 metres off the road, and we drilled to do the test drill, and water immediately poured out the top. Water was so high. You think to yourself, not a lot we can do on this site. I went back from the site 80 metres, drilled again, and we got surface water at 2.3 metres before we touched water. Again, didn't give you a lot to work with. We went further back another 80 yards, drilled again, and it was 3.4 metres before we hit surface, before we hit water. Well, in order to comply with SuDS regulations, we've got to stop a metre from any surface water we get.
Right.
So we designed a system at 2.3 metres. The surface water for that site goes through the drains towards an infiltration trench that's housed underneath the road. It's all tarmacked over, drains either side, leading into an infiltration trench, and we have drilled underneath the infiltration trench to take that water naturally into the ground. So that water will eventually work its way through the ground back into the water table. But what are we doing? What does the industry do? Worldwide, we have a shortage of water. A shortage,
Yeah.
and it's going to come back and bite us all on the backside one of these days. If it's not a bad summer, a lot of the reservoirs that we've got all over the country are ridiculously low at the moment. A few people getting worried about it. And yet, we're pumping billions of litres of water every day into the ocean, which is toxic. Whereas, why not we putting it back into the ground and let Mother Nature do what it's always done? And, I'm not saying overnight we would solve the water shortage, but we'd probably go a long way towards it. There's no need for water to be pumped to the ocean. And even if we talk about sewage, what happens with sewage? We send it to an infiltration plant, we clean it, and then pump it out into the ocean. It's grey water. So why can that grey water not be taken back into the earth? Again, let Mother Nature take care of it. Instead of that, we're almost consumed by the notion that we have to send water to the ocean. And, it just, in my mind, this does not make sense.
There's big messages there, I think, Frank, what you're saying, because in a world where sustainability is a big driver for local authority, we talk about sustainability, but sustainability is a big driver for governments, which is forced for us as designers to think about it. And ultimately, that whole policy process is forcing developers and contractors to think about sustainable methods. So what you're suggesting is that your solution is a big positive in terms of environmental footprint and sustainability, which I could believe. So how are you or your organisation promoting that? I mean, obviously you're hearing the podcast, and we can promote it through the podcast, but what else is happening with Groundwater Dynamics in terms of promoting the efficiencies of the system, and how are you getting it out in the marketplace?
We're getting out to the marketplace primarily with using CPD events.
Right.
We do a lot of CPD events to the engineers, etc. And, it's quite interesting because one of the things we often hear from the engineers is, if only we knew about this system a year ago. Everyone's got a solution, something that they wish they had a year ago. But I always start every CPD by saying to the engineers, I want you to be cynical. Because they are cynical anyway, so you might as well bring it up front. Be cynical, give me your questions, and we'll answer them. It's as simple as that. And, the system doesn't work all the time. No, it doesn't. What we tend to find, 80 to 85% of the time, we can come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 10% of the time, we have to do a little bit more work, do a little bit more testing, engineers have to work on it. And possibly about 5% of the time, we can say, I'm sorry guys, but our system just won't work here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the stats. And
Yeah.
that's based on evidence over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and typically, it always comes down to the end of it is, what's the easiest for us? And it'll always come down to price.
Mm-hmm.
And the price for ourselves, we might be 5 or 10% more expensive. But overall, by the time you take in the carbon footprint, dealing with it on site,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you actually do the metrics, we're well
Mm-hmm.
within
Yeah.
what it's all about.
So what would be? I'm thinking of. I'm gonna pick on the housing emergency crisis and the fact that we've got a shortage of housing. So I'm thinking about a new build development site with say 100 houses on it. That's just a number I've plucked out there. What would the process be then in terms of your involvement and when do you need in? What do you check? What do you do before we can get on site? And then how and when do you get involved on the site?
Okay. Well, it's a great question, Kerry. What we really need to do is be involved in the project as soon as possible.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that we get a lot of tenders that come out when they've already got a solution.
Right.
And that's too late for us at that stage
Mhm.
because they're way down the line. They're not going to want to change. They've spent too much money to change.
Mhm.
Whereas if we're involved from day one, the first thing we would do when I get an inquiry is visit the site.
Mhm.
I visit every site
Mhm.
that we get. Once we've done that, we would then check all the local borehole records to find out as much information as we can about that specific area.
Mhm.
Once we've looked at that, we have an idea that, yeah, this could work or it won't work.
Mhm.
Now, the local borehole records say the water table is very high, etc., or the ground conditions they'll tell us A or nay.
Mhm.
We'll say right away, sorry guys, it's not one for us.
Mhm.
But if they're quite positive, the next stage for us is to go and do test drill.
Mhm.
Specifically, or for that particular site, we do test drill, we measure the infiltration rates, we record the infiltration rates. Infiltration rates are recorded over an hour,
Mhm.
one every minute for the first 10 minutes, then we go to 5 minutes, and for up to 30 minutes, and then we go every 10 minutes from there on. So if we get the results for 60 minutes, we pass that to our engineers. Engineers do all the micro calculations that's done and produce a solution
Mhm.
based on the volume of water we have to deal with, the climate we're looking at. Generally speaking, we're talking about climate change is maybe 30-40%. There's a lot of solutions nowadays are 1 in 200-year events plus 40-50% for climate change.
Mhm.
We'll produce a report just multiplied, site specific, depending on the volume of water we have to deal with. And we provide everything where you can then go to the planners and say, right, here's our solution for this particular site.
Mhm.
Dealing with the water on site, no retention ponds, no water leaving the site, all water held in, and there's no reason why it cannot go under the driveway.
Mhm.
No reason why it can't go under the roads.
Mhm.
No reason why it can't go under a football pitch.
Mhm. Mhm.
None whatsoever.
Yeah. So in theory, then, on occasion with your solutions, we're looking at an opportunity to um, save land and potentially build more houses. We're not putting a retention pond in, then would lead to the fact that you could put another 3 or 4 plots in the development, etc. So, what you said that you might be 5-10% more expensive in some
Yeah.
cases, but ultimately, if your solution frees up land
Yeah.
on the development, then ultimately there's an offset in terms of an increase in profit because the developer's putting more plots in the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, even sticking it under the roads. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
you know, it's just in fact, there's so many options.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly flexible.
Yeah. So sticking it under the roads, I take it then that if the roads are being adopted, the local authority, the roads departments are cool with that. They're
A lot of it tends to be private.
right.
You know, the ones we've had, we've not had any really objections from it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you know, a number of years ago, we had an inquiry for a job in Scotland here, and we had an objection from SEPA.
Mm-hmm.
Just being upfront and honest, we got an objection from SEPA,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember being on that job and we done the test drill, and everybody was saying to me, "It's not going to work here. It's not going to work. You know, we've got high water tables here. It's not going to work." Okay, fine. And we done the test drill, and we done 4 sets of holes, which was 16 holes. We do four holes every set. We done 16 holes, and never found any water. Never found any water. So I told you we got an objection with SEPA. Our engineers went and spoke to SEPA, and once they had discussed it, SEPA withdrew all objections, and the job went ahead. About within 6 months, we got an inquiry for the same site where they wanted to develop it once again. Different part of the site. When I say a different part, we're only talking less than 200 yards away, but it's a different part of the site. We went back and we test drilled again. Again, no sign of any surface water. We installed the system, and that was in 2018, and never a problem since. No problem since. No sign of water. No objection with Scottish Water. And the second part we done, I was there about 9 months ago looking at the job. They've got a new manager in looking after the place, and there's a big part of the storage area is actually underneath a concreted area where you've got heavy lorries going over it, and the guy had absolutely no idea that the drainage system for dealing with the surface water is underneath this concrete base where you've got all these heavy duty lorries driving over the top of.
Yeah.
You know, so it can be done.
Can be done. So the premise of the Hard Hat Talks podcast is really to try and find out. I wanted to dive a wee bit further there into what the solutions are, because I thought that was important for the listeners. But the premise of the podcast is really to try and find out, with that in mind, what's the biggest challenges that you're facing with the business, with the system.
I don't see a challenge with the system.
Right.
The real challenge is the user,
Right.
i.e. the architect, the drainage consultants, the engineers. Is opening their eyes to that there is an option, rather than just go with status quo, because status quo is easy. If you've done it 100 times, you wake up the next morning, you'll just do the same again. But when you talk about something that's innovative, when you have to think about it, need a little bit of faith. But I would think the faith part is a tick box exercise, because what you need is evidence to back it up. And I believe that we've got the evidence, because we've got, as I say, the infiltration rates. We've got the engineers that's designing the system. We've got that backed up by £2 million PI insurance. And the systems are all designed to adequately deal with the water that's there. But for some reason, a lot of the drainage engineers just want to go with status quo.
Right.
So it needs a bit of vision. That's probably the biggest challenge. The one thing it would help would obviously if Scottish Water or the Water Authority were to go ahead and adopt it, then that would make a massive difference.
So what do you mean by the Scottish Water Authorities adopting it? Because you mean in terms of their own projects?
A lot of the objections we get from engineers is, has it been adopted by Scottish Water? And as soon as you start talking about, well, they haven't adopted it, but they're quite happy with the system, but it doesn't seem to be enough for a lot of people. They want Scottish Water to, in effect, they want to pass the buck. That's for what. Let's call a spade a spade. What they're looking for, and even for ourselves, they're looking for someone else to carry the can if something goes wrong.
Future maintenance.
Yeah, and not so much even for that reason, but even we find it. I mean, people will come to us. Okay, they want a solution, but what they really want is someone to take responsibility for it. They want to get that responsibility off not my problem. I've got them, they're the experts, so it's off my desk. So they've passed the problem on to someone else. And it's something we have to be careful for, because a lot of people sort of look and say, well, can I get so-and-so to do the test drill? And you go, no. Well, why not? Because, we've dealt with these guys for the last 10 years, etc., blah, 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 100%. But we've got to ensure that these test results are absolutely 100% accurate, because we're the guys that's carrying the can on this.
Yeah.
It's our PI that's involved in,
Mm-hmm.
so we want to make sure that we do the results ourselves, do the test results ourselves,
Yeah.
so we know exactly what we're
Yep.
dealing with, accurate figures.
Yeah.
And one example of that is, when we get the SI, we've had instances where, we've had SI sent to us that aren't 100% accurate. I know you find that hard to believe, but we have come across that in the past, where we've got an SI, and there was a site, an SI that had been produced 5 years previously, and we weren't given the one that was produced 5 years previously, which severely altered the whole job function. And then you get a problem, you think, well, why have we got a problem? As soon as you go into it and you look at it, you say, well, why didn't we get the initial report? Because they didn't want us to see it. What they wanted was to pass it over to someone else. So get someone else to take responsibility.
I think that's a big thing in industry, though.
Well, it can be, yeah.
And not just for yourselves, but
Yeah.
the whole industry, the whole PI insurance. We've seen it this year. We got quotes of from last year. It was a 700% increase,
Yeah.
and I managed to negotiate that down to 300% by looking at the risk profile of some of the projects we're working on,
Yeah.
and agreeing what we are and not doing. So, architects, for example, we can no longer get involved in the specification of waterproofing for basements.
Yeah.
Now we kind of know, some systems, not every system out there in terms of waterproofing, and we know where the waterproofing's to go, but we're not allowed to detail it.
Yeah.
And the same things come in with fire as well. So I think there's a whole industry challenge just now, for the right reasons. I keep saying that in all the podcasts. We're all inflicted with these. We can't do this, you can't do that, and that's for the right reasons, because something's happened, a disaster, a Grenfell or whatever in the past. We've had guests on talking about what do you call it, gases under the ground and gas membranes, and the fact that I forget the name of the place, but in Scotland, a whole housing development was knocked down because of gas issues and owners feeling unwell. So we've got all those justifiable situations for why we're all now in the position that we're in. But ultimately, it's resulted in an heavily increased PI, that you think, is this truly affordable? And also, the levels of PI that we're now paying means that as businesses, we can only grow so much. Like, we're growing, instead of growing from project to project, we're growing from PI level to PI level, because we've got architects. I know architects who are sitting with 10 and 20 million pound PI cover, to do local authority schools.
Yeah.
Now, as an architect, could we do a school as a practice? Of course we could.
Yeah.
But there was no way we could afford the PI cover for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, so we're in that world just now.
Yeah.
We're working with contractors who are doing reclads on buildings in England that's following Grenfell. Their PI insurance is hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
And you just think, wow, how sustainable is this? So I think insurance and professional indemnity in the whole industry is a huge challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely 100% right. But at the end of the day, who actually pays for the PI? I mean, it's not, at the end of the day, it goes on the price of the job.
Well, it does, ultimately.
Ultimately, it's the client who pays for it.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we tend to get a little bit bogged down on, we talk about the cost of PI, etc., the cost of material, etc. But at the end of the day, it comes back to the client. The client pays, if that's the price. Do they want that insurance, then the client pays the price.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is the price of insurance is the price of insurance. And we can do it, we try and negotiate, etc., but at the end of the day, it has to be paid.
Well, absolutely. I agree with you, but if we look at that across the whole industry, and probably as an architect practice, we're quite close to most clients.
Yeah.
And the dilemmas that they face are, we've got a more what's the word, holistic view of the whole project and some of the challenges the project and the client's facing. And I think there's far too many projects just now that are just not cost effective. they just cannot be delivered on budget.
Yeah.
And ultimately, a developer's out there to make money, either for themselves as a private company or shareholders or whatever. No matter what size you are as a developer, you need to make money. And you've got material prices going up, you've got professional fees going up, you've got land values going up. But actually, I would probably argue they're the first thing that should get squeezed, because land's not worth what it was worth all those years ago. And there used to be the old rule of thumb, the man in the pub would say a third, a third, a third. So third land value, third build costs, and third profits. I don't think there's very many companies that are able to deliver that. I think those days are long gone. So all of these things need to get paid for. And all these things are put in place for the right reasons. But ultimately, when you look at the bottom line, all of these things are pushing more and more developments and more projects to the shelf. They're just not going to go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly a challenge is getting the site sort of cost effective.
Yeah.
But again, we go back to talk about the surface water. If you get a site and you don't have a solution, what is that site worth?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Are you with me?
Yep.
That site needs a solution to have any value. You can't develop it if you're not got a solution for your surface water. Whereas there's no reason why we can't come in and produce a solution for you on that site, depending obviously on ground conditions. Everything's got to be effective. But what I'm saying here is that when we look at the big picture, and you mentioned costs, if you're going with the flow and doing what everybody else is doing, then it's a drive to the bottom in terms of price.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Our price is £1 million. We'll do it for 950,000. Next job you go in and you lost that previous job, so you need to sharpen your pencil this time. So we'll go in at 925,000. And then the guy says, well, we'll go to 900. So it's a drive. So you're actually, because you're the same as everybody else, you're involved in that drive to the bottom in terms of price. Whereas the company that stands up with the people that say, this is what we do, why we do it.
You
with me?
Yeah.
And people understand that companies have to make a profit. It's when they see the results at the end of the year, and they see especially some of the major house builders, returning in profits of excess of 100 million and 500 million, etc. And house prices are going through the roof, and all the costs. We keep getting told about costs going through the roof. Everything's going through the roof, all the prices, and yet some of the major house builders are still passing over substantial profits.
Yeah, well, absolutely. No, you're right. There is the other side of the coin whereby some of those big house builders can and still do deliver some significant sums of money in profits.
I think the thing that's worthwhile thinking about is some of these companies have got massive overdrafts. And I'm not talking about 10, 20, 30,000. I'm talking about 30, 40, 50 million pounds. And what you tend to find is that whenever these companies get into serious bother and they end up going out of business, if you look at their figures, they've actually found that they're going into debt. The debt they're carrying is just phenomenal. And that debt has to be funded. And that's a big danger. That's a big danger.
Yeah. I think it's a time we're living in just now as well. The whole cost of living crisis, the whole post-COVID, material prices going up, wages going up. All political, social, economic reasons. Some for the right, etc. We've got the migrant issues. There's loads going on in the UK just now that's having an effect across the board in the construction industry, and it almost feels to me just now. To me right now, I guess this is the best way to describe it. I feel like the construction industry can't breathe just now. I feel like it's been choked, and it just needs a bit of that pressure to be released in order for it to get back to being fun again and letting things do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's a great point you make. But if you think back over the last 100 years, every generation has got challenges. The only thing we can guarantee is it'll be a challenge. I mean, to get a job and think it's going to go great, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. Every job has got a challenge. Every generation has got challenges. there's always obstacles,
Mm-hmm.
but every year we go over it. We get over it.
Okay. Yeah.
And you mentioned COVID. COVID is a massive challenge, but here we are, a couple of years down the line, we're still getting on with our lives.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
Absolutely.
will bounce back.
Yep.
They will bounce back. There's always a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
But
Well, for most of us, we'll wake up tomorrow and try and fix the challenges we couldn't fix yesterday, and we just keep going.
exactly.
Definitely. I think what I would say though, in the 20 odd years that I've ran block architects, the challenges do seem to be getting thicker and faster.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
They're not getting any easier. But that is the nature of the beast.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think, again, I always try to look at the positive side of it.
Mm-hmm.
There will be engineers out there at the moment that are working with specific companies,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll have that dream
Mm-hmm.
of starting their own company.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
despite all the challenges,
Yeah.
despite what the PI, despite all the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
people will still go out there and do it.
Uh-huh.
And who's to say that the big builders of today won't be replaced by additional big builders in 10 years' time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Despite all the challenges that construction
Mm-hmm.
industry is going through today,
Mm-hmm.
we might have a wimpy 2 in 10 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just don't know what we're going to have in
Mm-hmm.
10 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing we know is that the market will change.
Mm-hmm.
People change.
Yeah.
Challenges change.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got, as a nation, we overcome these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there will always be another phoenix somewhere along the line.
Yeah, there's always,
That's it.
you just got to be positive, Kenny,
Yeah.
because, there's a solution there.
Uh-huh.
We don't always know what the solutions are.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
they're there. We just don't
Yeah.
know it yet.
Great. One of the challenges that a lot of our guests on the podcast have mentioned to us is the one of recruitment and skill set.
Yeah.
So your product, I'm going to say, I think it's I don't know of anyone else that does it. I think it's still quite avant-garde. Obviously, you've got discussions with SEPA and other bodies to accept the reports and the science behind it, and that's becoming a bit more comfortable with those bodies. But then I'm thinking, right, so where does the company sit in terms of recruitment, in terms of your techs on site and training? How are you attracting people in the industry? Do you have a challenge, or are you finding workforce?
Our solution is not labour intensive, and our squad, for want of a better word, is a driller and 2 labourers.
Right.
So one of the jobs that we could do someone's back garden. We can send 1 squad, 1 driller and 2 labourers, or we done a job a couple of years ago in East Midland Airport where we had 12 teams on it, depending on the job.
Right.
So we don't need a lot of labour skills to do it. As I say, the main one is the driller, and we can certainly train the driller up within 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
Anyone that can drive could be a driller.
Right. Okay.
So, and there's millions of drivers on the go. So we don't have that issue,
Right.
because it's not as if I've got apprentices. We have to train apprentices, etc. So it's not a major issue for us. I can understand it's a problem for the industry if you're looking for electricians and plumbers and joiners and roofers and all these sorts of guys. But for our industry, we don't see a problem.
Right. Okay.
We don't have a problem with recruitment.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else you think we need to have a wee chat about then for the viewers?
I think that the big thing is the legislators. They really have to zoom in if they want to be zero carbon. Then they've really got to sort of waken up and smell the roses and look at the big picture, not a part of the picture, which I believe is what they're looking at the moment. Even if you go to a lot of the planning departments are getting inquiries all the time, and they're thinking, yeah, okay, tick the box, it's got a SuDS system, it's got a retention pond, okay, yeah, we're quite happy to go ahead. The planning department should be stepping back and saying, well, hold on a minute. If we look at the legislation, we should be looking for a tier 1 solution. Tier 1 solution be the first port of call. And yet, what are they doing? They're quite happy to let a tier 2, tier 3 solution pass when they haven't maybe not even looked at a tier 1 solution.
Do you want to maybe explain what you mean by that for the listeners?
Yeah,
In case they're
I
not-
mean, the legislation produced by the Water Authority is saying that the first option is a Tier 1 solution,
Uh-huh.
which in effect is dealing with the surface water at source.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of the builders and architects, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
They know they'll get a retention pond through, they'll know they've got an outlet, they'll get it through. So why do we have to bother with a Tier 1 solution?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is that the planning department are quite happy to go along with that, whereas the
Mm-hmm.
planning department should be saying, have you looked at the Tier 1 option before
Mm-hmm.
you do anything? And if they haven't, then it should be passed back.
Mm. All right.
Passed
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
we want to see if you can produce, if you can't get a Tier 1 solution, then we'll look at Tier 2 or Tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 3. But if you can get a Tier 1, then that's got to be that's the legislation, Tier 1.
So what makes you think then the planning departments aren't? Or why aren't they doing that then?
Probably because they don't need to, because the Tier
Right.
2 does it, Tier 3 does it, it does the job, ticks the boxes, let's move on, next site, under pressure, understaffed, all these sorts of things. And these guys are like everyone else, they're under pressure. The developer wants to get his site done. The planning departments are under severe pressure to get the approvals out through the door. So let's move on. It's a tick box exercise, whereas if they were used to, planning departments could control the market right away by saying, Tier 1 solution, guys, that's what we need. And if they started that, then that would transform the industry. And it would also, overnight, put billions of litres of water back into the ground. Water goes back into the ground, goes back into the water tables, reduces the problem, will help to reduce the water shortage that we're going to face someday down the line, and make it last a little bit longer. So there's plenty they can do, but they're just ticking the boxes, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I think we speak about a radicalisation of the planning system, and I think there's a lot of political conversation about that, I'm going to say I don't know if it's happening or not. There's a lot of conversation about that's what needs to happen, but I wonder to what extent it is happening or whether we're still testing the waters. We see a lot of posts on social media from Scottish Government and that I forget the name of it, but the kind of heads of planning and how they're trying to look at certain aspects of the system in order to speed up approvals, and to increase capacity. But it just seems to be that it's a lot of fact finding and conversation and putting things out into the marketplace for conversation, for opinion. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be done. I'd rather that be done than not be done, but it's the pace, the pace is really, really slow.
Yeah.
And I don't think that if we continue at that pace that anything radical is going to come over the next 3, 4, 5 years in terms of the speed of decisions being made, or the pace of housing on site. In fact, I think probably the conversation I'm having in Scotland is that there's a decline in the pace of house building still. But we see it with it. We see that the planning departments in Scotland are fundamentally crucial in order to get the construction industry moving again. It's so important, and we agree that the officers are under-resourced. But I don't think that a lot of planning departments, the cultures in the departments, etc., help themselves, and certainly don't help us, the guys that's got to. We've got to manage so much on a property development that's above and beyond just planning tick box. We've got foresight of so much of the development process from beginning to end, and I think the planning departments, whilst very important, they don't gauge the whole process. Not enough of them gauge the whole process. And I think if we could have a bit more of dialogue and conversation. We used to have it years ago. It's just gone now. There's no dialogue with officers, particularly on the smaller projects. Some of the larger projects, that maybe a bit more of a kind of commercial influence for the local area. Bringing housing or jobs, or we'll get a bit more dialogue then, but still not what it used to be. So there is definitely challenges,
Yeah.
and we've also seen, as you might remember, that a lot of the reports and the professionals we now engage at the planning stage were actually dealt with at building control stage. So it seems to be this flip of let's get all the information up front, which I kind of agree with to some extent, because we flush out the challenges of the site a lot sooner and get to whether it's viable or not. But it does mean that the planning process is delayed, because all of those reporting has got to be done and analysed and prepared, and then it goes into the planning, and then it goes through the planning process. So there's a lot of upfront loading of developments now. Even like doing your own stuff.
Yeah.
To get that all done, tick the boxes, make sure it works.
I think if we talk about the planning department, etc., you mentioned earlier on about recruitment, etc. I mean, one of the problems that the planning department have is the guys that are retiring.
Oh, absolutely.
We're losing so much experience there that people are retiring.
Yeah.
But when we talk about our solution, etc., from an inquiry scenario between the visit to the site, the test drill, engineer solution, we've got that package. We can have that package within 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Not months, not years, 3 to 4 weeks. So you could be going to the planning department with our solution, a tier 1 solution, within 4 weeks. So, and if you can go to the planning department with your planning application tied up in a little pink bow, then
that's the ideal scenario.
It should fly through.
Yep, ideal
you
scenario.
tick all the boxes, no delay, no nothing. No objection to this one or that one about this, that, and the next thing. You've got an engineer solution. You go to planning. Here's our solution.
Yeah.
What's the problem? And it really smooths the process through.
Yeah.
Instead of that, what we're finding is developers discovering a little stream that happened to show up on a map 150 years ago or 100 years ago, whatever, and that's their outlet.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I don't need a tier 1 solution. I've got an outlet, and no one ever knew it was there, but it was on a map, and that's their outlet, and that gets through planning.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I get it, Frank.
Yeah.
I get it. Yep.
And we've got so many examples. We had an inquiry not that long ago, and the problem was that it was a school, and there was a burn not that far from the bottom of the school. The burn was overflowing, and the area, a lot of the schools nowadays, the playground forms part of the classroom, especially in the primary school where the kids can get out and play in the parking area, etc. And this area was flooding, and the developer wanted us to come up with a solution to stop this. Well, we can't stop burns overflowing. So on that particular case, we're saying, sorry guys, we can't come up with a solution. Right? Okay, fine. 3 months later, there's a planning application in to build a lot of houses on this site that we can't produce a solution for. And that's going to flood. If that burn overflows, these houses are going to flood. And yet there's an application in to build houses on this site. Now that can't be right.
No.
Can't be right.
No. And actually, I'm thinking about the whole flood thing, because obviously we've had Willie Hume on from Taranis talking about the recent changes to SEPA and the flood, the changes to flood risk, and we've got all these local authorities, etc., reassessing the value of a portfolio because of the change criteria from SEPA now means that more land is susceptible to flooding, whether it is or whether it isn't. But academically it now is. But even at a small level, I'm thinking about a next door neighbour of my mum's who said that he actually phoned me up. He says he was struggling to get his what do you call it? He was struggling to get home insurance because of this new SEPA map, and his insurer said your house is in a flood risk area, which was surface water, surface water. So all these surface water maps have changed as well. So it's a surface water, as we say, is a huge issue, not just for the developer, but from everyone down to the homeowner who's maybe got a wet back garden who needs to dry out the grass.
Yeah.
You know, it's at all different levels.
Yeah.
Frank, I've had a really interesting time. It's an interesting topic. It's something that affects us as architects and our clients constantly. And I'm glad we've got you back in the office, because as much as I've known about your product, it's great to get people back in, because I'm now thinking of several projects where I need to get you to chat to some of the architects in here, because the projects are early enough on that we could probably get you in front of the client and see for solutions. So thanks for that. We always kind of round off with a couple of questions. So the question from the previous guest was, and it's an interesting one. If you to imagine writing your own eulogy, you know, what might the first couple of sentences be?
Yeah, probably the first one would be, this guy solved the water shortage.
Right, okay, right.
Or helped to reduce the water shortage. You know, no longer people are dying of thirst because of Frank. It's the surface water guy. It's groundwater dynamics. That would probably be about it. Yeah,
with a link to the webpage.
Yeah. Well done, Frank. You know, where the thirst is gone. You know, it's helped. Yeah.
Right.
No, I really love what I do. I just love the process. I love meeting the people. I love looking at the sites.
It comes across, Frank, because you mentioned it. I won't say anything about your age, but you mentioned it. You're past retirement age, and you're still going strong and with passion about water. You know.
Kenny, I'm sitting here today, at 70 years of age, and I'm even more passionate now than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I will never retire.
Right.
I will never retire. I love what I'm doing. I love the challenges. I love going out and looking at the sites, whether it's someone's back garden, which I was out last week, a couple of back gardens in Paisley, or to a big development just off the A1. Maybe a job in Inverness for Bear Scotland. You know, I just love it. I just love getting out there, and you know, I'm probably in an inevitable position, in the sense that in 95% of the cases we can come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And because it's something that people maybe don't know about, then you know it gives me that little bit of extra motivation to say, look, guys, we can make a difference.
Excellent.
You know, 100%. So I love it, Kenny.
Fantastic. Brilliant. You don't know who the next guest is. I know they're booked in, but I can't think who it is myself, actually. So have you got a wee question for the next
question
guest?
for the next? Yeah. Well, probably the biggest challenge facing the construction industry nowadays is recruitment. And you touched on it earlier on about recruitment. And that would be for the big guys. How can we solve this recruitment problem?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we've dabbled on that with a few guests, because they've talked about their own challenges of recruitment, but we've never actually had anyone ask the question is how do we solve it? So I'll put that to the next guest and see how we go. Frank, I've had a blast. I'm sure the listeners will have learned quite a lot, and hopefully get in touch with you, because there's a lot that you've got to give them. What's best to reach out to you?
Probably best by just phoning me.
Right.
My mobile's on morning and night.
Right, okay. Right.
Just phone me, 07957 860052.
Oh, there you go.
Or you can get me on LinkedIn.
Right.
Frank O'Donnell, the surface water guy.
Frank O'Donnell, the surface water guy.
That's because the surface water guy, because that's how people refer to me. Oh, you're Frank, the surface water guy. So just search for LinkedIn, the surface water guy, connect with me, get in touch. Want a CPD event, no charge, whether you want it in person or online, we're happy to do it.
Great. Well, we'll take you.
It doesn't matter whether you've got 2 architects or 2 people with drainage consultants working, or whether you've got 10. We're happy to do it.
Happy. Fantastic. We'll need to get in here for CPD. Frank, I've enjoyed your time here on the podcast. Thanks for coming in. And hopefully we'll get some good likes and some shares.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Kenny. I've thoroughly enjoyed being here. And hopefully it helps your listeners.
Fantastic. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hard Hat Talks. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. That way, you'll be sure to never miss an episode. If you've any feedback or a topic you want us to tackle, please drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Till next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep your hard hat on.